The massive Zervax Confederation warship tore through the fabric of space above Earth, its emergence sending atmospheric disturbances cascading across the globe. Weather patterns fractured, communications stuttered, and wildlife fell silent as the vessel, nearly 5 kilometers in length, settled into geosynchronous orbit. Commander Exelther stood on the command deck, his translucent skin reflecting the blue-green planet below. 4 arms crossed over his armored torso as he studied the holographic assessment flickering before him. "Confirm classification," he ordered, voice like grinding stone. "Confirmed, Commander," his second replied. "Class 2 species. Pre-unified government structure. Primitive fission/fusion energy utilization. Negligible orbital defense capability. Atmospheric craft only." Xelfar's mouthparts curled in what passed for a smile among his kind. Physical assessment. Standard carbon-based bipeds. Average height, 1.7 meters. Musculature approximately 0.4 on the Galactic standard scale. No natural armor or offensive adaptations. Endurance rated at 0.3 gs. The commander's eyes. 6 iridescent orbs arranged in a precise hexagon. Narrowed. Another soft world, then. Prepare the diplomatic contingent. Standard resource acquisition protocol. Science Officer Vreen, his slender form dwarfed by the commander's battle-scarred bulk, approached with characteristic hesitation. "Commander, respectfully, our scans detect some anomalies in their communication patterns. There are indications off." "Your concerns are noted, Science Officer," Xelfar interrupted. "I subjugated 17 species. This will be 18. Their classification is clear." Thunder rolled across Manhattan as the Confederation shuttle descended through storm clouds deliberately seeded by the aliens, a calculated show of technological superiority. United Nations Plaza had been evacuated, save for the diplomatic team assembled on the rain-slicked landing pad. Ambassador Elena Santos stood unmoving as the downpour soaked through her ceremonial attire, a striking fusion of diplomatic formality and subtle military styling. The silver pins on her collar caught the lightning flashes, momentarily illuminating the battle ribbons carefully disguised as decorative elements. "Atmospheric manipulation," murmured General Takeda beside her. "Trying to make an entrance." Santos nodded almost imperceptibly. "Predictable. Psychological intimidation through weather control suggests a species with a hierarchical power structure." Her voice betrayed no anxiety, only clinical assessment. The shuttle touched down with precision, steam rising where its landing gear met the rain-soaked concrete. A ramp extended, and the alien delegation emerged. Commander Xelfar's massive form flanked by warriors and diplomats in formation. Ambassador Santos, the translator device at Xelfar's throat, produced flawless English. "The Zervax Confederation extends greetings to your world." His eyes performed a dismissive scan of the human delegation, already calculating resource quotas and extraction timelines. "Commander Xelvar," Santos replied, stepping forward with perfect composure. "Earth welcomes you and your delegation." She showed neither fear nor awe, only professional courtesy that somehow conveyed absolute equality. The commander's outer eyes twitched in barely suppressed surprise. The reception proceeded according to protocol until the incident. A waiter approached the Confederation's cultural attaché, a glass of champagne shattering against the floor. In the split second before liquid hit marble, Security Chief Rivera moved, covering 15 meters in an eye blink, tackling the waiter as a metallic object flashed in his hand. Xelfar barely registered the movement until it was over. Rivera had the would-be assassin pinned, the ceremonial blade that had been concealed in his sleeve now secured. "Forgive the disturbance," Santos said smoothly. "An unfortunate security breach." Vreen, however, had been recording. He replayed the footage, measuring the human speed and reaction time. According to their species profile, what he had witnessed should have been physiologically impossible. "Commander," he whispered, "the human moved at 0.78 gs. Their species profile lists maximum reflex capability at 0.35. An anomaly. Selfar dismissed. Nothing more. Later that night, 50 meters beneath the UN complex, Santos stood before Earth's Unified Defense Council. On the central screen, complete schematics of the Confederation vessel, highlighting weapons systems, propulsion vulnerabilities, and shield generators. "How long have they been watching us?" General Takeda asked. Santos allowed herself a small smile, long enough for us to have been watching them back. She gestured, and the screen shifted to show the locations of stealth platforms throughout the solar system, platforms the aliens had never detected. "Their records," she continued, "classify us as weak, divided, and technologically primitive." Her eyes hardened. "Their records are wrong." Around the table, military leaders from every continent nodded in grim satisfaction. "And soon," Santos concluded, "they'll be running." The Confederation's terms were projected in holographic detail above the conference table. Ambassador Santos read each line with maddening slowness, while Selfar's patience visibly eroded. The private negotiation chamber, 20 stories beneath the UN complex, hummed with environmental systems calibrated to accommodate both species. "To summarize," Santos finally said, her voice neutral, "Earth surrenders 60% of its mineral resources, accepts Confederation advisors in all major governments, and receives what appears to be interstellar drive technology that's 3 generations obsolete." She raised a single eyebrow. "Am I understanding correctly?" "The terms are generous," Selfar rumbled. "Your civilization requires guidance. The Confederation offers protection and technological advancement in exchange for reasonable resource allocations." Santos did something then that no species had done in Selfar's extensive diplomatic career. She laughed. Not a nervous chuckle or diplomatic titter, but genuine, full-throated laughter that echoed off the chamber walls. Zelfar's translucent skin flushed violet with barely contained rage. "Commander," she said when she'd composed herself, "perhaps there's been a misunderstanding about Earth's position." She gestured, and the holographic display transformed, showing a counter-proposal with startlingly balanced terms: mutual defense, technological exchange at equal levels, and coordinated resource development, with Earth maintaining sovereign control. "This is cosmic delusion," Selfar hissed, rising to his full 3-meter height. "You cannot possibly believe your primitive world deserves such standing." Santos remained seated, unimpressed. "We believe these terms accurately reflect reality." Zelfar's outer eyes pulsed with anger. "Then perhaps reality requires demonstration." His voice dropped to a dangerous register. "I invoke the right of comparative worth, the ancient custom of our people, a series of trials to determine the true ranking of species." His cultural attaché visibly stiffened. "Commander, the right has not been invoked in 7 centuries." "Silence," Zelfar thundered. He turned to Santos, mandibles clicking in satisfaction. "Accept the challenge or accept subjugation. Those are your choices, Ambassador." Before Santos could respond, a figure stepped forward from the human security detail, a tall man with military bearing and eyes that had seen too much. Major Jack Reeves moved with controlled precision, his slight limp barely noticeable. "We accept," Santos declared, her voice cutting through the tension. Zelfar's satisfaction faltered at her immediate acceptance. "Your champion will face trials of physical prowess, intellectual capability, and combat simulation. Does this human understand he will compete against beings engineered for excellence?" Reeves extended his hand in the human gesture of agreement. As Zelfar reluctantly clasped it, Reeves applied just enough pressure to make the alien commander's exoskeleton creak slightly. "Your records classify us as weak," Reeves said, his smile predatory. "Your records are wrong. Have you lost your mind?" General Takeda paced the secure briefing room. "You've committed us to a competition we know nothing about." Santos remained calm. "On the contrary, General, we know everything about it. She activated a display showing detailed analyses of previous Confederation challenges, gathered from intercepted communications and covert intelligence operations spanning decades. The right of comparative worth hasn't been invoked in centuries because the Confederation stopped finding it necessary. They evolved past most natural predators, so physical confrontation became ceremonial rather than functional. She nodded toward Reeves. Their combat doctrines are predictable, designed for overwhelming force rather than adaptation. And our advantages? Takeda asked. They've classified us based on outdated observations and fundamental misunderstandings, Reeves explained, removing his uniform jacket. Beneath it, his right arm gleamed with subtle technological enhancements, not obvious prosthetics, but integrated systems that blended seamlessly with muscle and bone. They believe they're dealing with baseline humans, he continued. They have no knowledge of our adaptive technologies, combat augmentations, or cognitive enhancements. More importantly, Santos added, the challenge is bias critical time. Checkmate protocol requires another 72 hours for full deployment. In his private quarters aboard the mothership, Science Officer Vreen reviewed the data with growing alarm. The human delegation's communications were perfectly aligned with Confederation translation systems. Too perfectly. Their diplomatic responses followed patterns that suggested prior knowledge of Confederation customs. Most concerning, orbital scans were detecting anomalous energy signatures from locations that previous surveys had shown as uninhabited. Commander, he reported, entering Selphar's chamber without announcement, I've discovered disturbing inconsistencies. He projected his findings: hidden military installations, defense satellites with suspicious capabilities, and communication grids designed to function under electromagnetic disruption. Their infrastructure suggests preparation for conflict, Vreen concluded. And their technology. It doesn't follow expected developmental patterns. Selphar dismissed the concerns with a wave. Primitive imitations. Nothing more. Commander, Vreen insisted, his voice uncharacteristically firm. I believe we have made a terrible miscalculation. Selphar's eyes narrowed. The trials begin tomorrow. We shall see who has miscalculated. The challenge arena dominated the central chamber of the Confederation mothership, a massive circular space with adjustable gravity and atmospheric conditions. Tiered seating surrounded the performance zone, now filled with alien dignitaries and scientists eager to witness human limitations firsthand. Commander Selphar occupied the ceremonial observer's platform, mandibles clicking in anticipation. The first trial tests physical endurance, the foundation of any species' worth, his amplified voice announced. Standard parameters: triple gravity, atmospheric density increased 40%. From the human observation deck, Ambassador Santos maintained her composure as Major Reeves entered the arena wearing only standard military fatigues, no visible protection against the crushing gravitational forces about to be unleashed. The alien champion, Krex, emerged from the opposite entrance, a bioengineered warrior with 4 muscular arms and reinforced skeletal structure. His exoskeleton gleamed with ceremonial markings denoting previous victories. Your champion may concede at any point, Selphar announced, focusing his 6 eyes on Santos. There is no shame in acknowledging biological limitations. Santos merely nodded. Understood, Commander. Begin. Selphar commanded, and atmospheric controls engage. The gravitational shift was immediate. Krex adjusted his stance as the increased force pressed down, while Reeves dropped to one knee, visibly struggling. A murmur of satisfaction rippled through the alien audience. Baseline human physiological limits will be reached in approximately 7 minutes, Vreen noted clinically, recording data. Yet 7 minutes passed, and Reeves remained conscious. 15 minutes, and he had forced himself back to standing position. His face contorted with effort, blood vessels visibly straining beneath his skin, but he matched Krex's movements across the arena floor. After the first hour, confused whispers spread among the alien observers. After the second, Zelfar's mandibles twitched in agitation. Impossible, Vreen muttered, staring at his scanning equipment. His bone density is increasing during the challenge. His muscle tissue is adapting to the stress in real time. This contradicts all biological data in our archives. The third hour brought the unexpected. Krex, designed for sustained combat in high-gravity environments, began showing signs of exhaustion. His lower arms trembled, movements growing sluggish. Reeves, blood seeping from his nose and ears, continued matching him step for step. When Krex finally collapsed at the 4-hour mark, Reeves remained standing, battered, bloody, but unbowed. Stunned silence filled the arena. "Explain," Zelfar demanded in the privacy of the command deck, his voice dangerously quiet. Vreen projected his analysis cautiously. The human skeletal structure showed microfracturing that should have caused systemic failure, yet new bone formation occurred simultaneously. His cardiovascular system adapted to increased pressure in ways our models cannot account for. Genetic manipulation. Technological enhancement. None detected, Vreen replied. However, I've been reviewing Earth's historical records. This adaptability appears to be natural. Their species evolved on a planet with dramatic environmental variations and survived multiple near-extinction events. Their entire evolutionary path has been shaped by adaptation to impossible conditions. Zelfar dismissed this with a violent gesture. The intellectual challenge will expose their limitations. Prepare the quantum maze. The second challenge should have been straightforward. Navigate a holographic labyrinth while solving increasingly complex quantum equations that altered the maze's structure. The Confederation champion, a neurologically enhanced navigator, entered with confidence. Reeves, recovered but still showing bruises from the previous ordeal, studied the maze entrance thoughtfully. "Begin," Zelfar commanded. The alien navigator immediately engaged with the prescribed methodology, solving equations sequentially to reveal proper pathways. Reeves, however, did something entirely unexpected. Instead of following the intended solution path, he identified structural weaknesses in the maze's quantum framework itself. Rather than solving each equation as presented, he created mathematical paradoxes that caused localized collapses in the maze structure, essentially tunneling through barriers by exploiting contradictions in the system's logic. He's not solving the maze, Vreen realized, watching in fascination. He's breaking it. When Reeves emerged at the endpoint, arriving before the Confederation champion had navigated even half the maze, Zelfar's rage was palpable. "Their approach is fundamentally irrational," Vreen observed. "They don't follow expected logical progressions." Back on Earth, in the command center beneath Geneva, technicians monitored global deployment of the Checkmate protocol. Defensive platforms across the solar system silently powered up, cloaking fields masking their activation signatures. 76% deployed, reported the operations chief. "Will reach full operational status before the final challenge." On a secondary screen, footage showed Vreen accessing restricted human historical archives, his eyes widening at images of human warfare through the centuries. The brutal innovation, the relentless adaptation, the capacity for both savage destruction and brilliant creation. His private log update flashed briefly on the monitoring station. "They've been fighting with a savagery and innovation we cannot comprehend. Their entire evolution has been shaped by violence we never experienced. The Confederation has never encountered a species that honed its killing efficiency against itself." The combat simulation chamber glowed with holographic projections, a battlefield environment of urban ruins and dense vegetation. Zelfar's frustration manifested in the scenario parameters. Reeves would face 10 Confederation elite warriors simultaneously, each armed with standard plasma weaponry, while he received only a primitive projectile sidearm. "This exceeds traditional challenge parameters," Vreen noted quietly. "The human has demonstrated unexpected capabilities." Zelfar replied, "The parameters have been adjusted accordingly." From the observation platform, Ambassador Santos studied the battlefield layout. her expression revealing nothing. When Reeves entered the chamber, he showed no reaction to the overwhelming odds. "Your objective is elimination of hostile forces," Zelfar announced. "Survival for 15 minutes constitutes success." Reeves nodded once, checking his weapon with practiced efficiency. "Begin." The holographic opponents materialized, immediately deploying into standard Confederation assault formation, a tactical approach optimized over centuries of warfare. Reeves assessed them for precisely 3 seconds before doing something entirely unexpected. He fired at the ceiling. The collapsing debris temporarily confused 3 opponents, but more significantly, it created a dust cloud that obscured the battlefield sensors. When visibility returned, Reeves had vanished. "Interesting," murmured Santos. The Confederation warriors advanced methodically, sweeping zones with textbook precision. 8 minutes in, they'd encountered no sign of the human. Then the first warrior fell. A precise shot from an impossible angle severed a critical neural connection in its holographic form. "He's modified the weapon," Vreen observed, analyzing the data. "Reconfigured it for increased accuracy and penetration." The second warrior fell moments later. By the 12-minute mark, half the opposition had been neutralized, yet Reeves remained unseen. When he finally revealed himself, it was deliberately, exposing his position to draw fire from 3 opponents simultaneously. "Suicide," Zelfar concluded with satisfaction. But as plasma fire converged on Reeves' position, he dropped into a prepared depression in the ground. The crossfire eliminated 2 of his attackers while he dispatched the third with his final round. When the simulation ended, Reeves stood alone among the dissipating holographic forms of fallen warriors. Blood seeped from a plasma burn on his shoulder, an injury he deliberately accepted to secure his final position. "Illogical," muttered a Confederation general. He sacrificed tactical advantage and accepted injury. "Brilliant," corrected Vreen. He recognized that victory required acceptable losses. "Commander, I must insist you review my findings," Vreen said, projecting comprehensive data in Zelfar's private chamber. "This isn't mere anomalous performance. We fundamentally misunderstood their species." The display showed human evolutionary patterns, historical development timelines, and combat doctrines, all dramatically different from Confederation models. Their development has been accelerated by constant warfare, environmental disasters, and biological challenges that would have exterminated most species. Their technology appears primitive because it followed entirely different paths. Vreen highlighted neural scanning data from Reeves during the challenges. Most concerning, human cognitive patterns show simultaneous logical and completely irrational processing. They make intuitive leaps our species cannot predict or counter. Zelfar was about to dismiss these concerns when his communication officer burst in without protocol. "Commander, emergency situation. Our primary encryption has been compromised. All communications since first contact have been intercepted." "Impossible," Zelfar snarled. "Our quantum encryption has been broken," concluded the officer. "The humans have been reading everything." On Earth, in a secure facility beneath the Antarctic ice shelf, specialists monitored every transmission from the Confederation vessel. "Their entire tactical database is downloading now," reported the lead analyst to Santos through quantum-encrypted channels. "Weapons specifications, shield frequencies, fold space formulas. Everything." Santos nodded with satisfaction. "And checkmate protocol. Final positions achieved. Full operational status in 17 hours. On her private screen, Santos reviewed footage from the Confederation mothership, Vreen's unauthorized investigations into human history, his growing comprehension of their mistake, and Zelfar's stubborn refusal to acknowledge the evidence. "They thought they were studying us," she told the Unified Defense Council. "They never realized we were studying them." General Takeda leaned forward. "And the final challenge. Neural interface integration," Santos replied. "The one they believe is impossible for our primitive minds to survive." Her smile contained no warmth. They have no idea what they're about to unleash. On the primary monitor, deployment markers for Earth's hidden defense grid blinked steadily toward completion. A network decades in development, reverse-engineered from technology, the Confederation didn't realize humans had possessed for generations. The neural interface chamber hummed with ominous energy. At its center stood a translucent pillar containing swirling quantum particles, the physical manifestation of the Confederation's most advanced computing technology. No non-Confederation species had ever successfully interfaced with it. Most that attempted suffered catastrophic neural collapse. This final challenge will determine species standing, Selfar announced to the assembled dignitaries, his confidence restored. Neural synchronization with our quantum network requires evolutionary compatibility that only advanced species possess. Ambassador Santos studied the apparatus with apparent academic interest and the parameters of success. Merely survival would be unprecedented, Selfar replied, mandibles clicking in amusement. Your champion need only maintain consciousness for 30 seconds without suffering permanent brain damage. Reeves entered the chamber, the injuries from previous challenges still visible on his body. A Confederation medical officer attached neural sensors to his temples with obvious skepticism. You may withdraw, the officer offered quietly. There is no dishonor in recognizing biological limitations. Reeves said nothing, simply moving to the interface platform. Begin synchronization, Selfar commanded. The quantum particles accelerated, emitting pulses of light that connected to Reeves' neural sensors. His body stiffened, eyes widening as the alien consciousness of the network invaded his mind. Blood vessels in his eyes burst, crimson tears tracking down his cheeks. Neural patterns destabilizing, reported the monitoring technician. Cognitive functions fragmenting. Selfar turned to Santos. Your champion has 10 seconds until permanent damage. I suggest you terminate the connection. Santos remained impassive. Continue. At 20 seconds, Reeves began to smile, blood streaming from his eyes, ears, and nose, yet somehow still conscious. At 25 seconds, the monitoring equipment began emitting warning signals, but they weren't tracking Reeves' condition. They were warning about the network itself. Unauthorized access detected, announced the system. Security protocols breached. Containment failing. At 30 seconds, Reeves spoke a single word, checkmate. The neural connection severed automatically. Reeves remained standing, bloodied but triumphant, as chaos erupted among the Confederation technical staff. He penetrated the cognitive firewall, a technician reported in disbelief. He's extracted classified files, military deployments, species assessments, diplomatic protocols. Impossible. Selfar roared. No, Santos corrected calmly. Inevitable. How? Selfar demanded in the emergency conference that followed. No primitive nervous system could survive integration with our network, much less extract secured data. Santos activated a holographic display showing the wreckage of a small craft partially buried in Pacific Ocean sediment, unmistakably Confederation in design. Because we've had your neural technology for decades, she explained. This scout ship crashed in 1978. We recovered it, studied it, and eventually mastered it. The revelation struck Selfar like physical blow. You knew we were coming. We've known about the Confederation for 50 years, Santos confirmed. The crashed ship's databanks were intact. We learned your languages, your customs, your technological principles. And most importantly, she nodded to Reeves, who projected stolen files from the neural interface. We learned your intentions. The files displayed the Confederation's systematic resource extraction from dozens of worlds, each classified, approached, and ultimately harvested using identical protocols. Earth had been next on their list. You've been observing us, Santos continued, cataloging our resources, assessing our defenses, all while believing we were oblivious. But we've been preparing for this moment for half a century. Selfar's rage finally erupted. This changes nothing. The Confederation fleet can reduce your cities to ash within days. I wouldn't recommend that approach, Santos replied, activating her communication device. Checkmate Protocol. Phase 1. Across the solar system, hidden human platforms suddenly powered up, creating a containment field around the Confederation mothership. More shocking, holographic representatives from the Arcturus Coalition, the Regellian Compact, and the Sirius Hegemony, all galactic powers the Confederation had decades-long conflicts with, materialized behind Santos. "We've been making friends," she explained, gesturing to the alien representatives. "More trustworthy ones." Zelfar, comprehending the depth of their intelligence failure, lunged forward with a ceremonial blade drawn from his armor, only to freeze as cold metal touched his throat. Somehow, Reeves had moved across the room faster than anyone could track, now holding the alien's own secondary blade against his carotid equivalent. "Did I mention," Reeves whispered, "that some of us have been enhanced with your own technology? Your records were wrong about a lot of things." "Release me," Zelthar growled, the ceremonial blade still pressed against his throat. His officers stood frozen, weapons half-drawn, unwilling to risk their commander's life. Reeves looked to Santos, who nodded once. He stepped back, the alien blade spinning expertly through his fingers before coming to rest at his side. "This farce changes nothing," Zelfar snarled, his pride wounded more deeply than any physical injury could have inflicted. "You've revealed your deception too early, Ambassador. The Confederation fleet will respond to this insult with overwhelming force." Santos remained unnervingly calm. "Is that your choice, then? Escalation rather than negotiation?" "You mistake the situation," Zelfar replied, mandibles clicking in derision. "There is no negotiation. There is only the inevitability of superior force." With a gesture, he activated his command interface. "Dreadnought inevitability. This is Commander Zelfar. Immediate intervention protocol. Authentication sequence Gamma 6 Epsilon." The confirmation came almost instantly. Authentication confirmed. Fold space transition initiated. Arrival in 17 minutes. Vreem's eyes widened in alarm. "Commander, perhaps we should consider." "Silence," Zelfar thundered. Turning to Santos, his voice dropped to a dangerous purr. "The inevitability is a planet-killer class vessel. Ambassador, perhaps you'd like to reconsider your position while your world still exists." Santos showed no fear, only a thoughtful expression. "I'd like to consult with Earth Command before responding to this escalation. 20 minutes should suffice." 17, Zelfar corrected with cruel satisfaction. "The time you have until the inevitability arrives." Santos nodded graciously. 17 minutes will be adequate. Toward the approaching dreadnought, Supreme Captain Vexcal reviewed the emergency transmission. "Situation assessment." "Unknown, Supreme Captain," his second replied. Commander Zelfar's communication was brief. He mentioned unexpected resistance, but provided no tactical details. "Curious," Vexcal murmured. "Prepare full combat systems. We'll emerge from fold space with weapons primed." "Is that necessary for a Class II world?" the second questioned. "Commander Zelthar would not request intervention without cause," Vexcal replied. "We will be prepared for any contingency." 16 minutes later, the fabric of space tore open above Earth as the inevitability emerged, a behemoth vessel that dwarfed even the Confederation mothership. Its hull bristled with weapons emplacements, shield generators glowing with ominous energy. From the negotiation chamber, Zelfar watched with undisguised triumph as the massive ship settled into orbit. "Your time has expired, Ambassador. Your response?" Santos touched her communications device. "Checkmate protocol. Phase 2. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Zelfar's mandibles parted in a smile, until alarms began blaring throughout the mothership. Across Earth's orbital space, hundreds of stealth platforms simultaneously deactivated their cloaking fields, revealing a defensive grid that enclosed not only the mothership but now the dreadnought as well. More shocking, The platform's design incorporated unmistakable elements of Confederation technology, yet reconfigured in ways that bewildered the alien observers. "Impossible," whispered Vreen. "Our sensors detected nothing." A single missile launched from a platform near Luna, small compared to the dreadnought's massive bulk. The inevitability's point defense systems targeted it, yet somehow failed to connect. When the missile impacted the dreadnought's shields, it didn't detonate. Instead, it phase-shifted through the supposedly impenetrable barrier and attached to the vessel's primary propulsion manifold. Throughout the dreadnought, systems began shutting down in cascading failure. Weapons, propulsion, communications, all disabled with surgical precision, leaving life support and basic functions intact. "We'd recovered 3 of your scout ships over the past century," Santos explained, watching the dreadnought's lights flicker as emergency systems engage. "Enough to reverse engineer your weapons, but we made improvements." Vreen finally understood the fundamental error in their assessment. Human warfare had evolved differently because they valued survival over annihilation, precision over raw destructive power. Their approach to conflict wasn't primitive, it was fundamentally more advanced. Reeves stepped forward, addressing the stunned HFY. "Your species evolved through conquest of weaker opponents. Ours evolved through extinction-level events that nearly wiped us out dozens of times. We don't just fight to win. We fight to survive against impossible odds." He gestured to the disabled dreadnought. "We could have vaporized your ships the moment they entered our system. We chose not to." "That's another thing your records got wrong about humans," Santos added quietly. "We prefer making allies to corpses when given the choice." The Confederation's Supreme Council had never convened an emergency session with such haste. Within 48 hours of the inevitability's neutralization, High Counselor Zara arrived with an elite diplomatic contingent and a team of the Confederation's most brilliant scientific minds. HFY had been relieved of command, his failure deemed catastrophic. Vreen, however, had been elevated to Chief Scientific Advisor for his accurate, if belated, assessment of human capabilities. "We approached this as a containment operation," Zara instructed her team as their shuttle descended toward the United Nations complex. Her form was more elegant than HFY's. 6 iridescent eyes arranged in perfect symmetry above diminutive mandibles that suggested her lineage came from the administrative rather than warrior caste. "Our objective is to prevent further deterioration of Confederation influence while we reassess this species." Vreen's voice was quiet but firm. "With respect, High Counselor, I believe you still fundamentally misunderstand the situation." Zora's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "We aren't containing them," Vreen replied. "We're trying to contain the damage to our standing. There's a critical difference." The diplomatic reception hall had been transformed. Representatives from a dozen galactic civilizations now flanked Ambassador Santos, some in physical form, others as sophisticated holographic projections. Earth, somehow, had become the center of an emerging power block that had coalesced with astonishing speed. "High Counselor Zara," Santos greeted the alien diplomat. "Earth welcomes you and your delegation." Zara performed the formal greeting with flawless precision. "The Supreme Council extends its apologies for the unfortunate tensions during initial contact. Commander Xelhar's methods were overzealous." Diplomatic translation: "He failed catastrophically, and you're here for damage control," Santos replied with a knowing smile. "Let's dispense with the pretense, shall we? Your Confederation has dominated this sector for millennia through a systematic process of identifying, classifying, and subjugating or partnering with new species based entirely on your assessment of their value." Zara's outer eyes widened slightly, the only indication of her surprise at Santos' directness. "A fair assessment," the alien conceded. "And now we must reassess yours." The tour of Earth's facilities had been carefully orchestrated to reveal exactly what humanity wanted the Confederation to see. No more, no less. Each demonstration showcased technological innovations that followed principles the aliens found bewildering yet undeniably effective. "This is impossible," murmured a Confederation physicist, examining Earth's approach to quantum entanglement communication. "They've solved the coherence decay problem that has stumped our scientists for centuries." In another laboratory, engineers demonstrated gravity manipulation technology developed along completely different theoretical lines than the Confederation's approach. They didn't follow expected developmental patterns, Vreen explained to an increasingly disturbed Zora. They explored paths our scientists abandoned millennia ago and found solutions we overlooked. The most unsettling revelation came during their visit to a primary school. Alien observers watched in fascination as human children engaged in creative play, combining concepts in ways that seemed chaotic yet resulted in innovative solutions to presented problems. "This is the source of their advantage," Vreen noted. "Their neural development encourages connections between concepts we would consider unrelated. They make cognitive leaps we cannot predict." Before Zora could respond, an aide approached with urgent information. Reports were arriving from Confederation outposts in neighboring systems. Human presence had been detected at multiple locations, not recent arrivals, but established operations that had somehow remained undetected for years. They'd been expanding through covert operations, Zara realized with growing alarm. While we believed them confined to their world, they were studying us throughout our territory. The most disturbing report came from a mining colony near Proxima Centauri. Security footage showed humans working alongside alien crews for at least 3 years, disguised just enough to avoid detection while gathering intelligence. "We're not negotiating from a position of strength," Zara whispered to her advisors. "We're negotiating to avoid a conflict we might actually lose." Later that day, in a friendly exhibition, Major Reeves and a small team of enhanced human operatives demonstrated combat techniques against Confederation elite warriors. The outcome left the alien observers questioning everything they thought they knew about warfare. "They don't fight like any species we've encountered," a Confederation general admitted. "They employ chaos as a strategic element. It makes them unpredictable." Vreen nodded solemnly. "That's what makes them human." The Grand Assembly Hall of the United Nations gleamed with ceremonial splendor as representatives from 14 galactic civilizations gathered for the signing of the Sol Accords. Massive holographic displays allowed billions across Earth and throughout aligned worlds to witness the historic moment, the formal recognition of humanity as a major galactic power. For the Confederation, which had dominated its sector for millennia, the diplomatic concessions were unprecedented. What had begun as a routine resource acquisition mission had transformed into the most significant power shift in recorded galactic history. High Counselor Zora approached the central podium with Ambassador Santos, the two leaders presenting a unified front that would have been unimaginable weeks earlier. "Today marks the beginning of a new era of cooperation," Zara announced, her translator producing flawless diplomatic language. "The Zervax Confederation welcomes Earth as a full partner in galactic governance." The careful wording couldn't disguise the reality. This wasn't an act of generosity but necessity. Behind the ceremonial pleasantries lay the stark truth. Humans had forced the Confederation to the negotiating table through strategic brilliance rather than superior firepower. As the various leaders applied their signatures or equivalent authorization markers to the accords, the assembled dignitaries applauded with appropriate restraint. Only those in the inner circles understood the complete reconfiguration of power taking place beneath the diplomatic veneer. "You could have destroyed our ships," Zara said later in a private garden overlooking the Pacific. The formal reception continued inside, but she had requested this moment alone with Santos. "Why didn't you?" Santos studied the ocean horizon thoughtfully. "Because we ran the simulations. All possible outcomes. Destroying your forces would have led to prolonged war with unacceptable casualties on both sides. This path leads to mutual prosperity." The revelation sent a chill through Zora more profound than any threat of weapons. "You're saying humans can accurately model galactic political outcomes. We've had 50 years to study Confederation psychology, decision-making patterns, and response protocols. Santos replied. Your species is remarkably consistent in its approaches. It made you predictable. Zara's outer eyes narrowed. And the other galactic powers? How did you establish relations so quickly? Santos smiled. Who says it was quick? We've been maintaining covert diplomatic channels with the Arcturus Coalition for 15 years. The Regellian Compact for 12. We only revealed these connections when the strategic moment arrived. The implications were staggering. While the Confederation had been cataloging Earth as a primitive world ripe for exploitation, humans have been quietly reshaping the galaxy's diplomatic landscape. As the Confederation delegation prepared to depart the following day, Reeves and Vreen shared a final conversation on the observation deck overlooking the launch platform. Your species makes no sense, the alien scientist admitted, his voice carrying genuine admiration. You're violent but compassionate, irrational but brilliant, physically limited but adaptable beyond all logic. Reeves smiled. That's our secret. We contain contradictions that make us unpredictable. There's one question that still puzzles me, Vreen said. With your stealth technology and diplomatic connections, you could have remained hidden from us indefinitely. Why allow yourselves to be discovered? Reeves gazed at the massive Confederation ships preparing for departure. Because sometimes the most effective strategy isn't hiding your strength. It's allowing yourself to be underestimated at first contact. His eyes met Vreen's. It's easier to reshape galactic power structures when no one sees you coming. As the Confederation vessels broke orbit, their analytical systems completed a comprehensive update on humanity's classification. The new designation contained seemingly contradictory elements. Asterisk species, human, Terra/Sol III asterisk. Asterisk classification, potential extinction level threat/essential alliance partner asterisk. Asterisk recommended approach, priority diplomatic engagement/extreme caution asterisk. Asterisk additional notes, conventional predictive models unreliable. Constant reassessment necessary, asterisk. Across the galaxy, the message spread rapidly through official and unofficial channels. The species everyone had underestimated had arrived on the galactic stage, and the balance of power would never be the same again. On Earth, Santos reviewed the final deployment of the Checkmate Protocol. The planetary defense grid now operated at full capacity, while human expeditionary vessels moved openly through systems previously dominated by the Confederation. Their records were wrong, she murmured, echoing the phrase that had become Earth's unofficial motto in the corridors of galactic power. And now, they're running to catch up.